Hello, Martin Jarvis here, with an excerpt from a Just William story written by Richmal Crompton in 1931. It's called William Holds the Stage. An old boy of William's school, Mr. Welbecker, offered a prize to the form that should act a scene from Shakespeare most successfully. He'd written an article on Shakespeare which appeared in the local press, and he wanted to commemorate his achievement by instituting the Welbecker Shakespeare Acting Shield in his old school. To make matters worse, Mr. Welbecker arrived at the school one morning unexpectedly and offered to give a lecture on Shakespeare to the school. The headmaster said hastily he was sure it would be a deep disappointment to the boys, but the routine of the school could not allow it. It was at this moment that the second master came in to ask what was to be done about 3A. The master who should be teaching it had suddenly been taken ill. He implied that 3A was raising Cain in their form room. The headmaster's eye fell upon the Shakespearean author, and he brightened. Perhaps you would give your lecture to 3A, he suggested. It's young Brown, and that's it, murmured the second master. The headmaster's expression brightened still further. Splendid, splendid. I'm sure they'll find your lecture most interesting, Welbecker. Good morning. I'll see you, of course, before you go. A sudden silence greeted the entry of Mr. Welbecker into the classroom. Now, boys, he said breezily, I want to give you a little talk about Shakespeare. And I want you to ask me questions freely because I'm what you might call an expert on the subject. I've written a little book, some copies of which I have with me now, and which I'm going to give to the boys who seem to show the most intelligence. I'm sure they will always be among your greatest treasures. Because, it isn't everyone who can write a book, is it? I've written a book, said William nonchalantly. Oh, perhaps, said Mr. Welbecker, but you've not had it published, have you? Well, no, said William. I've not tried to have it published yet. And it wasn't on Shakespeare, was it? No, it was about someone a jolly sight more interested than Shakespeare. It was about a pirate called Dick of the Bloody Hand, and he started off in search of adventure. Yes, said Mr. Welbecker. But I just want to tell you a little about Shakespeare first. Now, the theory I incline to is that Bacon wrote the plays of Shakespeare. I wrote a play once, said William, and people acted it, but they all forgot their parts, but it was a jolly fine play all the same. I wish you wouldn't keep interrupting. Well, I thought you said we could ask questions. Yes, I did, but you're not asking questions. Well, I know I'm not, but I don't see any difference in asking a question and telling you something interesting. William was the only one who seemed to be taking any interest in the lecture. Well, said Mr. Welbecker, gazing round at his audience and returning at last reluctantly to William. I repeat that I incline to the theory that the plays of Shakespeare were written by Bacon. Well, how could they be? Said William. No, that was a question. You can't say that wasn't a question. And you said we could ask questions. How could the other man hand? I said Bacon. Well, it's nearly the same. So how could this man Bacon write them if Shakespeare wrote them? But you see, I don't believe that Shakespeare did write them. Well, he must have told the printers he did, or they wouldn't put his name on the books, and he ought to know. And if this other man, Eggs, I said Bacon, Bacon then, well, if this man Bacon wrote them, they wouldn't put this man Shakespeare's name on the books. They wouldn't be allowed to. They get put in prison for it. It seems to me the only way he could have done it was by poisoning this man Shakespeare and then stealing his plays. That's what I'd have done anyway. No, that's all nonsense. Now, boys, I want you all, please, to listen to me. No one responded. Dejectedly, Mr. Welbecker returned to his sole listener. Now, I want first to tell you the story of the play, of which you're all going to act a scene for the shield that I am presenting. There was a man called Hamlet. Well, you just said he was called Bacon. I did not say he was called Bacon. Oh yes, excuse me, you did. When I called him Ham, you said it was Bacon. Now you're calling him Ham yourself. No, this was a different man. Listen. This man was called Hamlet, and his uncle had killed his father because he wanted to marry his mother. What did he want to marry his mother for? Said William. I've never heard of anyone wanting to marry their mother. No, it was Hamlet's mother he wanted to marry. Oh, that man, what you think, wrote the plays. No, that was Bacon. Well, you said it was Ham a minute ago. Whenever I say it's Bacon, you say it's Ham. And whenever I say it's Ham, you say it's Bacon. I don't think you know which his name was. Will you listen? This man Hamlet decided to kill his uncle. Why? I told you. Because his uncle had killed his father. Whose father? Hamlet's. Look, there's a beautiful girl in the play called Ophelia, and Hamlet had once wanted to marry her. Well, you just said he wanted to marry his mother. I did not. I wish you listened. Then he went mad, and this girl fell into the river. It was supposed to be an accident, but probably he pushed her in, supplied William. What? Who pushed her? Well, no, I thought you were going to say that man Bacon pushed her in. Hamlet, you mean? Look, I'll tell you what. Let's say eggs for both of them. Then we shan't get so muddled. Eggs means whichever of them it was. Oh, rubbish. Listen, I'll begin all over again. But just at that moment, the bell rang, and the headmaster entered the room. Immediately, 25 earnest, attentive faces were turned towards the lecturer. This is the end of the period, Welbecker, said the headmaster. 1,000 thanks for your help and your most interesting lecture. Now, boys, I want one of you to give me a short account of Mr. Welbecker's lecture. Anyone who thinks he can do so, put up your hand. Yes, Brown? Peter, he told us that he thinks that the plays of Shakespeare were really written by a man called Ham, and that Shakespeare poisoned this man called Ham and stole the plays and then pretended he'd written them. And then a man called Bacon pushed a woman into a pond because he wanted to marry his mother. And there's a man called Eggs, but I've forgotten what he did, except Mr. Welbecker's complexion had assumed a greenish hue. That will do, Brown, said the headmaster. Mr. Welbecker had chosen Act 3, Scene 1 to be acted for the shield. I'm not going to be the woman that gets pushed into a pond, said William firmly. I don't mind being the one that pushes her, and I don't mind being the one called Ham that poisoned Shakespeare, just so long as I've got a lot to say. When I'm in a play, I like to have a lot to say and a lot to do. William, of course, somehow got to play Hamlet, but exactly how he did it and what eventually happened on stage, well, that's really another story.